Welcome everyone to week 2 of our BFit journey, Fueling Your Body. I'd love to start by introducing you guys to the chat. Um, I think everybody knows where the chat function is, but we're going to do some interactive questions tonight. And so just so you kind of look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat function. And I want to hear from you. What is one food that you've eaten today that gave you energy? I want you to pop it in the chat. Anybody and everybody. I'm waiting. You guys see where the chat is? Randall, good job, Linda Painter. Randall said avocado and coffee. Oh, that's a good one. Peanut butter, Jenny Todd. Judy Baker said brown rice. Awesome. Anybody else want to comment on the chat? Deborah Ray said protein yogurt, and that's from the award-winning body composition, body transformation winner for Zalise, female. Edamame over some greens and veggies with hemp seeds. Nice job, Marcia Smith. I love it. Well, all those are great examples. And we're going to start today by just making sure that you guys can see my screen. We're still talking about the whole health transformation with BFit, the holistic approach to sustainable well-being and fitness. And this is a 5-week series. So last week we talked about setting personal health goals, and we're just going to review that. How many of you guys know that there's actually a video circulating on Team Unlimited on our YouTube channel that stars Marcia Smith reviewing BFit from last week? Yes? She did a phenomenal job, just kind of a review of what is BFit. So if you're new tonight or you're just getting this video, you can really sign up to get all of the Team Unlimited videos. But last week, we really talked about what is BFit and how can you get access to BFit. So tonight, we're going to dive deeper into the profound connection between what we eat and our physical health. And then you're going to see that we've got 4 different areas: the calorie value of food versus the hormonal effect of food, something called bright line eating, intermittent fasting, which is something that we talk about, eating windows. And Marcia's going to help us review the importance of protein in the BFit approach. And then we're going to have final thoughts. And there's a couple of times for you guys to chime in on the chat as well. So you know that BFit is the newest June 2nd once a day powder, weight loss powder that Zalise, a whole health company, launched. And many of us are on it. Hal, my husband, was one of the clinical participants, has had tremendous success, continues to lose weight. I think he's up to 32 pounds of weight lost now. And so remember that, when we talk about fueling our bodies, we talk about different areas, but tonight we're really going to talk about nutrition and how do we get the most, what do we eat, what things do we need to be aware of when we're using a supplement like BFit that is a great assist, it's a great tool, but it's not expected to do all the heavy lifting. And so we want to look at this whole health wheel. We want to remember that food is so much more than fuel, that it's energy, it's truly information for our cells. It's a key ingredient in living our best life. And so looking at that whole health wheel, we really are trying to achieve a sustainable transformation, something that lasts, something we can actually continue to maintain, a way of eating that's an enduring habit that really does contribute to long-term health and well-being, ultimately to fulfill our purpose in the world. And we talk about that in the context of whole health. That's everything is driven by purpose, what matters to us. And so we're looking to have improved health and vitality. That's physically, that's mentally, through balanced lifestyle choices. And then we want to avoid something temporary and something that would be high risk, steering clear of restrictive or short-term solutions that don't really support sustainable growth. So that's kind of the goal. And we've looked at the whole health wheel. We know that these pillars of health are all interconnected. And so fuel or nutrition is a key component of physical health, but it impacts everything else, the emotional stability, our mental clarity, and even spiritual vitality. So when we're undernourished or we're fueling with the wrong foods, it's like trying to run a race on an empty tank. And so our body struggles and our focus fades and our mood can tank. I remember clearly that I, all the way through my 30s, um, experienced this. And I'll talk a little bit more about just my own personal experience. But when I now know when we fuel well, and I've learned this over my lifetime, now 61, almost 62 years of life, I know how to fuel well. I know how to have energy, resilience, and clarity to live our purpose. But what we wanted to make sure is that everybody else from our team, everyone using BFit, also knows some of the key components of nutrition. And so the first thing, the first question I want to ask you guys, how many of you guys remember the whole phrase calories in versus calories out? And if you ever like grew up, in the 70s, then, I even remember as a personal trainer, I would literally sit down, help somebody calculate their metabolism, their rate of burning calories at rest, how many calories that they're burning when they exercise, how many calories are they eating when they bring their food in. And what I look back now and I realize that is completely wrong. And it's incomplete at best. That calories actually represent the amount of energy provided by the food we eat, and they're used by the body for all functions. Body weight in part depends on balancing calories, but that is not the whole picture. And the body isn't a bank account where you're tracking deposits and withdrawals. It's really a chemistry lab where you're constantly responding to signals from the foods you eat. And so just the example, 300 calories from, say, a Pop-Tart versus a 300 calories from salmon and vegetables can have two totally different hormonal effects. And that is a really key thing to understand. So I want to thank Marcia Smith. And Marcia, if you want to pop in at any point, Marcia is a holistic nurse coach. She's amazing. And we really kind of, this is enough to have an entire semester long conversation. So we wanted to really kind of come up with highlights. And this whole concept of food choices influencing hormones and metabolism is so big, guys. My dad, God bless him, was an endocrinologist and they deal with hormones all the time. But I never learned this information on this page right here. So this is something that all of us should know. I learned this in my 30s from a book called The Zone Diet by Barry Sears. I don't know if you guys have read it. Write it down, because I learned this very important fact that refined sugar and carbohydrates cause a very quick spike in insulin. Insulin makes your body store fat. So we don't want to have a ton of insulin running around in our bodies. Its job is to store excess energy, and it's very efficient at that. So insulin is this fat locking hormone. The higher the insulin level, the worse your health. So protein and healthy fats encourage the release of a hormone called glucagon. And this is a fat burning hormone that's really good, and it helps your body access stored fat. It can actually mute that insulin spike. So when we eat a diet that's really high in protein and nutrient dense foods, we keep these hormones in balance, meaning fewer cravings, more stable energy, and better focus. And I want to show you, you don't have to really get into the details of what this is, but I was looking all over the internet because I remember this picture when I took my first nutrition class. And what it really means is the high peaks are insulin spikes. And that means usually a refined carbohydrate. They're absorbed very, very quickly, and they cause a very sharp rise in insulin levels due to their what's called a high glycemic index. And I'm going to have Marcia unpack that in just a minute. But so think about this. When you see a big peak, that usually comes from eating the equivalent of a Pop-Tart, refined carbohydrates, fast burning, lots of refined sugar, maybe refined flour. And so when that happens, then insulin is released. Remember, that fat locking hormone is released, which plummets that insulin level, and it causes a dip. And when that insulin level drops very, very severely, it makes you want more sugary food. And so it causes this absolute roller coaster ride. When you can introduce protein, it results in a slower, more balanced insulin response and helps maintain more stable blood sugar and energy levels. And what happens if you have this repetitive cycle of lots and lots and lots of glucose, a lot of need for insulin, a lot of peaks and valleys over many, many years? It depletes the insulin in the body and we develop type 2 diabetes. And so it's very, very important to understand this concept, not just in managing your own hunger and energy, but just supporting long-term metabolic health. And Marcia, I'm going to have you, if you wouldn't mind, just pop on and tell us a little bit. We referred to the glycemic index. So tell us what that is.
Well, I will try to explain it in my best language, and that is all foods have some this glycemic index, which tells us how quickly it's going to process into sugar into our bloodstream after we eat it. So, like, you just look at this picture, you can kind of guess good and bad. And there's a, good, better, best list of glycemic food out there. And basically, what we want to try to do is choose as much lower, as much food that has the lowest glycemic indexes, because then that's telling us that we're not going to, dump all that sugar in our system, cause that insulin spike, and these roller coaster rides. And of course, one important thing to know about this index is that you wouldn't find this in protein, because protein doesn't have any carbohydrates per se, unless you put, barbecue sauce on it or ketchup, really sugary ketchup. So if you eat just regular protein and fat, and that's your main portion of your meal, you're really not going to have those drives in that blood sugar spikes. And I think you can go to the next slide. So this is just one glycemic index chart that I found about carbohydrates. And so it's a visual guideline. I don't want anybody to be so caught up that they, are worrying about what these numbers are on a daily basis, but just know that some foods have lower glycemic indexes. They're going to cause you less of, blood sugar irregularity and insulin spikes. And, so this is a good thing to use, like when you go to the grocery store and you're making your shopping list as you continue to go on your BFit journey. And you can find these indexes for fruits, vegetables, and these carbohydrates. I probably would like to mention that fruit in itself is very important because, if you're avoiding sugar, like if I do, I mean, I like to have my sweet taste, but I will pick fruit. I always have a piece of fruit. But there's like watermelon is a higher glycemic index than an apple. So again, you just use these charts as visual to, menu plan and grocery list plan. So you know that when you're making meals, you're hopefully not going to drive these spikes in your body. So I think that's all I have to say on that.
Marcia, that's such fascinating information to think that really glycemic index only describes carbohydrates, and that when you talk about proteins and even fats, there is no glycemic index. And so I also find it really fascinating just from other reading that the keto diet really kind of almost, really minimizes carbohydrates. And that can actually be a medical cure for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so just knowing what is a protein, what is a fat, what is a carbohydrate is really the beginning of awareness on how do you eat better for your metabolic health. And glycemic indexes is really an important concept. So thank you very much for that. Fiber also in a carbohydrate can really slow the rate of entry into the blood system. So foods with higher fiber content like fruit, like an apple versus a
Mm-hmm.
watermelon is a great example as well. So
But
thank
I
you.
think the other important thing is to not, because I love watermelon and I'm not going to not eat it. I'm just going to choose to eat it lesser amounts, lesser portions, and maybe less often. if I'm really worried about, that glycemic index. So I never want to tell anybody not to eat something because that's too restrictive, and that's a setup for failure when you're trying to, make behavior change. So just
Excellent
all
point.
for thought and just visual knowledge, if nothing else. So
Speaking of visual, I love this chart because it really shows high carbs or high glycemic index meals in the red, and then it shows the low carb glycemic index meals in the green. And if you've ever, like, gone to an all you can eat buffet, been on vacation or on a cruise where you have unlimited accesses of food, you might, what might you be doing at the dip of the red at the lowest point? Who knows? Put it in the chat. What you might be doing at the very lowest part of the glycemic curve. Crashing, taking a nap, Susan said. Getting sleepy, says Marcia. Absolutely. Usually we don't feel our most optimal self at the lowest part of the insulin curve. So just know that insulin and blood sugar are something that we really have to be mindful of. Some people actually wear a blood meter where they can actually every single moment they're monitoring what is happening in their body. Yes, Judy, being shaky is another thing I used to experience on a regular basis. So let's talk about another concept. And again, we're kind of talking about this in the concept of BFit, because BFit is really what has gotten our attention about really paying attention to weight changes over time. It's a long-term use supplement. But kind of thinking back to insulin spikes and the glycemic index, what if you're, still eating Pop Tarts and cinnamon rolls and using BFit? Are you going to get your best result? No, and that's why this is not strong enough to make up for really, really bad eating. And then when you consider hormones ghrelin and leptin with BFit, they have some very interesting roles. And maybe it was 10 years ago that I started hearing about these hunger hormones. We've heard about them a lot with the GLP-1 injectable pharmaceuticals, because ghrelin is a hunger hormone that stimulates appetite, and leptin is a satiety hormone that signals fullness. And these are naturally occurring in the body. There's some theories about people who are obese that there's something off with their hunger hormones and their satiety hormones. And, one of the things we've seen in the first 8 years working with Zalise is using the CBDs, which modulate and regulate everything. Sometimes people can lose weight just becoming regulated. But what BFit can do is it can help improve the appetite control. It can help balance those hunger hormones. It in of itself can signal fullness and improve gut health. And then fitness routines can also lower ghrelin and boost leptin sensitivity. So that supports appetite control and weight management. So it's important to know about these other aspects of um, hormonal health with regard to BFit. So here's a chance to hear from you guys. This is called an interactive food swap. I want you to share one food you love and then give a healthier hormone-friendly swap you could make this week, just one. And I'm going to give you an example. Instead of soda, which I'm sure nobody on this call ever uses soda, but you could maybe choose sparkling water with lemon. Or instead of, say, potato chips, you could have roasted chickpeas. So in the chat, I want you to throw in there one food you love and then give me a healthier hormone-friendly swap. Mary Barton says, eating for energy, BFit helps stop this for me. That's good. Spaghetti sauce instead of pasta, Deborah Ray. It's a good one. Instead of bread, Susan says a handful of walnuts. Excellent. Debbie Ray says squash. So that might be the improved version. I know people can make squash noodles instead of like pasta. Pizza, egg-like crust, says Nancy. Spaghetti squash. Oh, spaghetti squash, says Deborah Ray. Riced cauliflower instead of pasta and sauce. Marcia says good, very good feedback on that. So that's really, to me, that's what BFit has done for us. It's really, instead of a cookie, choose fruit. And I'd say instead of bread, you could choose those walnuts, unless it's Judy's bread, of course. And then I'm going to take the hit. Lettuce instead of burger buns. Yes, Jean, that's something Hal really enjoys doing. So you guys definitely are on the right track there. So let's look at another concept. I'm moving on. So first we talked about just the hormones. Calories are not calories. Calories are energy, and they're basically information for the body. So here's another thing that I was introduced to called bright line eating. And it was a book that I reviewed, and I thought it was really interesting. And it's interesting to me because part of Hal's story is that he knew from his own body that if he can just give up wheat and sugar, he can lose weight, which was great. The problem that he had is he lived with a woman who loves to bake, and it's not baking healthy treats. It's everything is refined sugar, and I would just go through a lot of sugar, a lot of flour. That's just the way I learned. And so even though he was getting his knee replacement and his surgeon said you need to lose weight, he just couldn't give up wheat and sugar until BFit. And so I've seen him literally transform into this man who's really bright line eating. And so I didn't know what to call that, but I want to show you guys, this is actually based on a book, and by Pierce, let's see here, Pierce Thompson is the author. And what he says is food addiction is real. We talk about addiction, Hal and I do every single day. Food addiction is real. Sugar and flour hijack your brain, especially the impulse control and decision-making part. And willpower isn't the problem, but decision fatigue is. And bright lines, what they're calling bright lines, are boundaries, eliminate ambiguity, and they protect your energy. And the author believes that freedom comes from discipline and clear boundaries so that your brain can relax, cravings fade, and peace returns. So I'm going to tell you, so there's 4 bright lines. And these, at one time in my life, I would have said, no freaking way would I ever consider doing anything like this. But Hal has done this. And so how has he done it? What's been the key? The only change that he's made is starting to incorporate BFit as a supplement. And so here are the 4 bright lines. Number 1, no sugar. And this helps reduce cravings. We've talked about spikes. It eliminates the spikes. It creates stable energy throughout the day. Sugar is an addiction. And there's a lot of other negative things we could say about sugar. So no flour is the second bright line. So like if you're drawing lines, we're making a box here. Eliminating flour from the diet aids in reducing those processed carbs, again, minimizing the insulin spike, and going only meals without snacking. And what that does as well is that actually promotes mindful eating and better digestion. And we're going to talk a little bit about intermittent fasting that kind of goes along with that. And then the last point is measuring food precisely. Precise measurement of food fosters control and clarity in eating habits. And so that's the 4 bright lines. And that's really intended to help regulate hunger hormones, break addictive food patterns, and make eating decisions effortless. So structuring meals around high quality protein sources make it easier to stick to those boundaries as well. And so here's the thing, how the key for him with doing this, these bright lines, was BFit, because it enhances appetite control and it empowers somebody to make more mindful food choices. And it fosters an awareness of what and how you eat each day, gives you a little bit more control over your appetite. Also helps decrease hunger. It helps manage cravings, prevents unnecessary snacking or overeating. And so you combine those 4 bright lines and BFit, and it creates a really sustainable program for well-being. So I want you to take a moment to reflect. And if you could draw just 1 bright line this week from those 4, what would it be? And I'm going to pause and just let you share your bright line. Now, instead of just the chat, I'm going to let you just kind of raise your hand and share it just on the video. So tell me, if you could just do one of those things, which one would you do this next week?
I wouldn't snack.
No snacking. Who said that?
I did.
Nancy. Nancy, who got all her tech figured out.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. So how did you come to that conclusion, Nancy?
Once I eat, I keep wanting to eat. You know, it's like
Yeah,
it's the trigger. And granted, I don't eat regular flour. I don't eat regular sugar. I don't even have it in my house,
good
you
for
know,
you.
but I still have that sugar craze, which the BFit has helped with that, that I
That's
don't
awesome.
crave it. Yeah.
Kind of
And
crazy
I
the way
have
that has
found
worked.
out that when I take it, and if I do have sugar of some sort, it upsets my stomach. So I'm like, oh,
Interesting.
oh, yeah.
Good, good to know. So no
That's
snacking
the
for
only thing
Nancy.
I've changed. So that's got to be what's doing it.
Awesome. Lashona, what bright line are you going to do?
Mine would be the mine would be more the not snacking and kind of like a mixture between that and intermittent fasting. Because usually if I'm trying to break stress habits, and sometimes for me the food is the go-to because
Mm,
my job is stressful. So sometimes I can be sitting there on the phone and I am snacking. So for me, if I want my get my digestions on a regular schedule, I'll eat every 6 hours just to make sure that, cutting out all the snacks, giving your body even time to break down the food that you've already ate.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We have time for one more. Anybody else want to share their bright line?
Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Judy.
Okay. I've got a chart that I've been keeping and I've already got no snacks on it, so I have to mark that off every day. But I get a little wonky when it comes to measurements. And I'm already, when I bake for me, I don't use I don't use processed flour. I use rice flour or wheat flour. So yeah, exact measurements would be my thing.
Well, Judy, you do it well. I'm honored to know that I've personally sampled your measurements. And
Yeah,
then let's see, we got a couple more on the chat. Linda Joyner says meals without snacking. I've reduced refined sugar, but use monk fruit instead. I'm doing intermittent fasting sometimes. We'll do it more often, especially after 6 p.m. However, 3:30 to 8:30 has been suggested. And then Linda says, as a diabetic, I've learned that I can eat a whole steak and still experience elevated glucose reading. So snacking on high protein every 2 hours helps keep my sugar levels more level, no dips. That's really, really good to know as well. Thank you for sharing that, Linda. Good. Awesome. Our team rocks. I love it. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. Oh, speaking of, Linda, intermittent fasting. This is something that I've been reading more and more and more and more about. And it really scared me initially because I thought if I skip breakfast, I might literally pass away. Like, I wondered if I would, you know, honestly, that's kind of, I was raised to eat 3 meals a day. And I just thought something horrible would happen if I didn't do it. But we're going to talk a little bit about what it is. And some of you guys have already experienced this. I know Hal has done a lot of fasting in his life. So here we go. So intermittent fasting is really not what you eat, it's when you eat. And this is some of the benefits, really. Intermittent fasting triggers a cellular repair process that helps maintain cell health and function. It improves insulin sensitivity. Remember the spikes. So fasting periods enhance insulin sensitivity, aiding better blood sugar regulation and less peaks on our spikes. And then here's a very big one, that there's really good data that it really does impact your lifespan, and that Metabolic pathways are activated by fasting, and they contribute to increased lifespan and overall health, overall increased fat burning, and better mental clarity. So it also supports weight loss by regulating calorie intake and improving metabolic efficiency, reduces inflammation. It helps cognitive and cognitive improvement. It really enhances cognitive function by boosting brain health and memory retention. Individual health conditions require personalized medical advice before starting intermittent fasting. We have to say that. Start slow and listen to your body. But here are some strategies for manageable fasting windows. So they recommend that you start with shorter, more manageable fasting periods to ease into the routine safely. A common approach is 16 to 8. That means fasting 16 hours and then eating within an 8-hour window. So kind of what I first started doing was stop eating at 6 or 7 and then don't eat again until like 10 a.m. the next day. And then you could take it till, lunch the next day. The key, what it does is it really cleans out a lot of toxic stuff in your body. And drinking plenty of water is really important to maintain hydration. Marsha's going to talk about this in a minute. And then, obviously you want to be very mindful, pay attention to your body's signals, and adjust fasting practices to ensure safety and effectiveness. I will tell you that my body has really told me that it likes to fast. I mean, I'm so surprised that I am better off not eating breakfast and just waiting until I get really, really hungry and then having maybe just a tablespoon of pistachios with the Caribbean Crush Edge, which obviously that has no calories and just has some vegetable protein in the pistachios. Linda says National Geographic did a documentary years ago saying that if we all ate half the portions we eat today, we would live longer. So that's very, very true. And I would love to, hear from you guys. If you have experimented at all with intermittent fasting, before we switch over to protein and water, I would love to hear your experiences. Anybody else have an intermittent fasting success story?
Hey Lisa, this is Jenny, and I'm like you. I grew up, you ate 3 meals a day, and I didn't think I could ever do anything without having a big breakfast. But when I started on BFit, it became, there's certain parameters. You take this BFit and then wait 30 minutes to eat, and then don't eat after 7 and hydrate. Well, this BFit made that change very, very easy for me to do. And now, I mean, and this didn't take very long. I'm like you, Lisa. I don't want to eat anything before 10:30 or 11. I have a cup of coffee and that's it. So I've had a very positive experience with it. And I think I'm really appreciative of that fact.
That's great, Jenny. It's interesting because when I do eat breakfast, like Linda, we ate a really good breakfast over at your house the other day when we did our Super Saturday, and Randall made us wonderful omelets. But I ate a piece of my protein banana bread, and I literally was hungry all day long. Versus if I had fasted as I normally had and worked out, which I normally do as well. And it's just so interesting. Anybody else have a period of fasting that has helped them?
Lisa, I have.
I want to hear about it, Deborah.
When I was stuck for those couple weeks where I'd, lost 3 pounds, lost 4 pounds, and it would stay a couple weeks, I said, well, let me try just eating my breakfast, which I'm not a breakfast eater per se. I never have been. My mom used to make me eggnogs. Of course, that was raw eggs. They tell you not to do that now. But that was one way my mom would get me to eat for some kind of breakfast. So usually I have my coffee after my 30 minutes of BFit. And then maybe after I take a walk with my dog, I'll have my protein yogurt with some no sugar granola. And that satisfies me. And then when I drop her off and continue my walk, I take a banana with me. But when I've done the fasting, I usually would eat that and then maybe some lunch at 1 o'clock, and then I wouldn't eat dinner. I would just drink my water. and then wouldn't eat until the next day, until, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Yeah, in the daytime, I mean. But that's when I would lose weight. If I did that, it'd kick my butt, I guess, and get my metabolism going or something, but it would make me lose that pound. And then I did that a couple times when I get stuck, and it seemed to work. So I do that if I get stuck. And I found if I get really hungry, I think I mentioned this to you before, if I get really hungry, it's usually about the time I do lose a pound the next day.
That's interesting.
So I
Well, and there's
have a hard time not wanting to eat because my body's saying you need to eat.
Well, there's this thing called autophagy, and that is the clean out process that your body does from cells and toxins and things like that. And when you do fast, that, at night and things like that, that is really where that process is undergone. And so, reading the chat here, Nancy says, I'm like you, I'm better not eating until I'm hungry. I vary the time I fast. That's good to know. And then Linda Painter says, yet exercise gurus say to eat a good breakfast because it starts metabolism, which continues to burn all day long. And that's probably true as well. Everybody has kind of their own opinion, but it's good to know that the data shows that with fasting, it prolongs life. And that we've seen that with caloric restriction. That's what Linda Painter was saying. When we restrict calories, that we can actually expand telomeres and extend life. So what does that look like? And that's where I think BFit can really help with that. So yeah.
Hey, can I add one thing about, I've been 12-hour fasting before it was cool to do 12-hour fasting. And I mean, because it's really not that tough if you don't eat after 7 and then the next morning you eat at 7. Right. I mean, that was a pretty easy thing to do. But your comment a while ago about your protein bread, if I do anything, when I come out of my fast, it's very important what I eat. And so I try to make it high true protein. And I don't really count some of the protein breads and stuff like that as protein because it really still has carbohydrates in it. And I try not to break a fast with carbohydrates because if I do, it's shaky. But that just comes from years of listening to my own body because I used to have a lot of blood sugar issues, and I've fixed that by just being careful about what I eat when.
So what do you break your fast with then, Susan?
I'll break it with an omelet, or I'll do a green smoothie that's all vegetables, and it will have some fruit in it, but it's like, even if I do a banana, it's a very green banana because the glycemic index is lower on it than it is if it's real ripe. So I try to do things like that with it. And I'll have like a ton of greens in mine. It's more than you get in a salad usually.
Gosh, that's great. Well, and it's done you well. And I know you're doing some BFit as well. So
yes,
how has that really impacted you, Susan? Because you're super lean.
At first, I could really tell a lot of difference. It was like I just didn't want to eat at all. I had to almost make myself eat. And so it kind of freaked me out, and I went off of it for a while. And because I got down to lower than I was in grade school. And so it kind of freaked me out because I lost it so fast. And so then I went off of it for a while and I came back to it. And when I came back to it now, it just helps. But it's not freaky like it was.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pause now, and we've talked about several big topics. We talked about calories in versus hormones. We've talked obviously about the intermittent fasting. We've talked about the insulin spikes, the hormonal approach as well. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Marcia Smith, nurse coach extraordinaire, and she's going to talk about something super important in just the world of nutrition, whole health, and BFit, the role of protein and hydration. So, Marcia,
Thank you.
Where are you? There you are.
I'm right here. So I think the key takeaway so far with a lot of these slides is that, and using BFit, is that we have to really be carbohydrate conscious as far as, empty nutrition, carbs and sugar. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a good piece of bread or whatever. But the other takeaway is that we need more protein in our diet. We have to have protein. It supports the building blocks of our body. And when you become ill, like if, you know, heaven forbid we have another pandemic of some sort, when you're ill, you want your muscle to be very, very strong and full of all the building blocks that it needs, so that if you can't eat for a few days or something like that, or you have GI upset or whatever it might be, your body isn't burning your muscle. Okay. So the more protein you eat, the better your lean muscle mass will be. And obviously you have to have lean muscle in order to have a metabolism that is functioning properly. When the muscles are strong, then the thing that the body will burn more quickly is your fat, what's accumulated and your fats that you ingest. Of course, hydration goes right along with that, because protein needs hydration to get where it needs to go and build those building blocks of your muscle. If everybody remembers the old-fashioned food pyramid from back when we were kids, where the bottom layer was all the carbohydrates, and I think it was like fruit and veggies, and then you had your meat, and then you had your fat at the very peak. So what we really want to do is almost invert that. We want to have protein, healthy fats at the base. That should be the basis of our meals. We want to include hydration in there, probably like the next level. Make sure you're adequately staying hydrated, and then you start putting your vegetables and your fruits in whichever order you may like, and because some people don't like a lot of vegetables, and so you need to have those things for the antioxidant properties and also the fiber, right? And then breads would be up at the little peak now. Healthy forms of whole grain and carbohydrates. So I couldn't find a good picture of that, otherwise I would have popped one in the files on Team Unlimited. But so if you can find one, please do put one there, because I think it's a good reminder to like hang on your fridge even. And I think another thing I heard everybody talking about was, I was raised to eat 3 meals a day. I was raised to have, cereal and toast, and that was my breakfast. I had to eat that before I went to school. And it probably helped us to not learn very well, because we were really dropping or increasing our insulin and increasing the blood sugar and having crashes. And that's probably why they made us nap, a couple times a day when we were little. The other really important thing is that protein helps hold water in your body. So like if you eat good proteins, then it also helps you to maintain your serum proteins. So your total protein, your albumin, your red cells, your hemoglobin, those are the things in your blood that are protein based as well. And that all helps hold water in the proper place, which is supposed to stay in our bloodstream and then go out to our organs and our cells. Instead of like very high carbohydrate laden diets can actually pull water or shift water. And so you end up with that water weight gain and you can't get rid of it. So again, the key is high protein, high protein, high protein. And the rule of thumb is to strive for about, I think it was about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram, or the other easy way to say it is about a gram per body weight. So roughly, let's say 100 grams of protein a day is a really good baseline. And it's kind of hard to achieve. Especially if you're a person that only likes to eat certain things, and you're not really a big meat eater, or you're not real big on beans or things like that. So I love this plate because it's a variety. And I don't know why we can't eat a plate of food like that for breakfast. I would totally eat that. And that kind of counters the beliefs that we were raised with, that we have to have only certain foods for breakfast and we only have to have certain foods for lunch and dinner. But I don't eat that way. If I have leftover chicken or steak or whatever, it's like that's going in my eggs too, and to make a big egg scramble, and maybe some sauteed vegetables, and or not even eggs. Just eat leftovers from the night before for breakfast, and it's perfectly fine. Is there what's the next slide there, girlie?
So we're, you want me to move it again?
Yeah.
So here's
so
our,
this is just a protein chart. I think we put this on Team Unlimited as well. But you can see how easy it is to get 30 grams of protein if you're eating sources of meat, and not everybody wants to or can, and that's perfectly fine. But this also, I like this graph because it also shows us that, you know, you can eat beans and nuts and different grains as well too, which aren't really on here, but you can also get proteins from that. Like I said today, I put hemp hearts, you know, like 3 tablespoons of hemp hearts is like 10 grams of protein. So there's ways to get protein if you're not a big a meat product person or dairy. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about protein.
I love that.
Anybody has any questions?
And then Marcia, do you want to go over kind of how water supports the body as well? Because I know, you know, that was kind of part of getting a baseline as to how much water we should be drinking, what it does. I mean, I know we've heard this in science, but we've slept since then.
I'm going to say one other thing about protein. So protein and healthy fats, those are also very important to help you take your fat soluble vitamins in and absorb them. So they're called fat soluble for a reason, and that's your A, D, K, and E. So you have to have fat in your diet in order for those to absorb. And you know, the healthier your gut is, especially like with using BFit, and the better these things will absorb. So hydration, we can't live without water. It's crucial for every metabolic reaction that happens in our body, every chemical process. We cannot sustain, we can live without food longer than we could live without water. And we can actually live without food and water more than we can live without sleep. So it's, you know, these are the things to remember, that, you know, adequate hydration is sometimes overlooked, and people will say, I don't like to drink water. I've never really understood that, but you can enhance your water with, you know, natural like fruit slices, or you can try getting your liquids with broth, especially like in the winter. I like to do that, like your bone broth, and which also has a lot of protein in it. And like coconut water is tasty, and it's really good for staying hydrated. And we have water soluble vitamins. So again, if you lack water intake, then you're really impeding the ability for these vitamins to absorb where they're supposed to go as well. And the 3 that the B complex vitamins, including folate and like vitamin C. So water, and you want to drink, I mean, there's different theories out there. What I found was for women, rough about 2 liters a day, or around 8 cups. This is another way to look at it. It's half of your body weight. And you can do that if you just break it down into small amounts all day long and keep a water bottle near you. Some people with mild dehydration, you can feel, you can have low energy, you can have headaches, you can have like a racy heart. You know, sometimes these kind of subtle things happen before you actually feel thirsty. So it's really great to just continue to monitor your body and know your body. So you're always drinking some form of water every day. And of course, if you're active outside and it's hot and like it's been this summer, it's like you have to increase that. And you're going to know because the signs would be, I'm not thirsty and my urine is a nice clear yellow color. It's not strong smelling. And I have good energy and I have no signs of a headache or whatever. So hydration also helps improve muscle recovery. So for all of us on this BFit plan, and we're all out trying to be more active and maybe starting to lift weights and weight train and these things, it's going to help your muscle recovery as well. It's going to protect your muscle and flush out those byproducts that happen when we do aerobic or anaerobic exercise. And probably everybody's heard of lactic acid and has felt it in your legs after doing squats for the first time in a long time. And of course, hydration is our friend when it comes to bowel regularity and kidney filtration. So if we want to clear waste, then we have to make sure our bodies are adequately hydrated. And I think that's all I got to say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marcia. And hopefully you guys now are going to be able to pass the test on the calorie value versus hormonal effect of food, what is bright line eating. You know what that is now. What are some of the benefits of intermittent fasting? What is the importance of protein? And all of it relevant to the BFit approach, because we know that those 6 ingredients in BFit do some really magical things. They regulate appetite and mood. They calm the central nervous system. They improve that insulin sensitivity. They regulate hunger hormones, balance, decrease appetite, decrease cravings, signal fullness. They improve the gut microbiome. They boost metabolism and they improve energy. So we have a wonderful tool, but it is not expected to do all the heavy lifting. So here's a little bit of reflection from you guys, and we're just kind of wrapping up here. Let's see, I'm going backwards, not forwards. So here we go. Let's talk about what's coming up for you. And I know some of you guys have been chatting with me, and is there anything you need more clarity on or any kind of takeaways? I know, let's see, Linda has been texting me. She said, I learned the hard way that if I'm dehydrated and my sugar is high, even if I use insulin, my sugar will not go down. I have to drink and walk at least 30 minutes before it starts to drop. She asked about plant protein versus animal protein. Southern breakfast with grits, eggs, and biscuits was Randall's upbringing. Amalaki is Lisa's friend. It absolutely is. What is a healthy fat? Jenny Todd asks. And Marcia answers that. Avocados, butter, extra virgin olive oil, oils, and healthy nuts. Try to avoid seed oils like canola. Nice job, Marcia. All right. So anything else? Any questions on what we've reviewed? Anything coming up at all that you need more clarification on? Any takeaways? Okay. And you can throw this in the chat or you can say it out loud. How does fueling your body well support your life's purpose? This was a med school question, literally, that we asked this week, is how is fueling your body connected to your life's purpose? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Complex question.
Oh, go ahead.
Y'all are
Judy.
all like intimidated. You can't get it wrong.
Okay.
Well, you can't have a purpose in life if you're not healthy and you don't feel well. You
Amen,
don't feel like
sister.
doing a
Right.
daggone thing.
Absolutely. Very, very good answer. And so how might the BFit program affect all of this? Your life's purpose, how fueling your body well can support your life's purpose. What is the role of BFit? Who would like to answer that?
Energy.
Energy.
More. do
Win a
more.
cruise.
I mean, that's what it's done for me. I get out and walk.
Linda
And
said,
go
we
buy
need to be a
fruits.
great example of the products we're promoting. Amen, sister. Gives us more energy, says iPhone. Not sure who's on iPhone, but
Well,
I agree.
the BCP, Lisa, is incredible for healthy gut. If you don't have a healthy gut, you're not healthy.
Absolutely. Gut brain axis. Very, very good point. BFit has a huge role, as well as so many of the other products that we are so fortunate to have access to. So here's the homework assignment. Are you ready to get out your pen and paper? Take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. This week, let's track our water intake and let's see if we're hitting that, 60 ounces or more of water. Some of you guys, like Randall, already has an app on his phone and does it anyway. He's ahead of the whole group. But that's number one. Number two, I want to include a quality protein source at each meal. So we're going to get really familiar with what's protein, what's carbs, what's fat, and then taking your daily powder BFit 30 minutes before your first meal. That is obviously something that we have done for a minute. And so we're learning how to be fit.
Oh, go back.
Tonight was really a focus on kind of the nutritional aspects of how we can actually even be more fit using this supplement and the best of science to affect our well-being and our life purpose. So I'm just checking the chat now, and Lashona says, I drink about 128 ounces of water a day. Do you have to have a catheter as you walk through a leg bag? You just have to go potty. That's awesome. Just teasing. Lashona, she knows what that is. So all of that to say, guys, thank you so much for being on tonight. We did this in just a little bit under an hour. And the reason we did this is because we wanted everyone on our team to not only have the very best information on how to support your own health journey, but this is information that we need to share as well. So Judy said, what was assignment number 3? Take your BFit.
Oh, okay.
You can do that naturally.
Hey,
But-
Lisa.
Hey, Lisa,
Yes.
this is Mary. I just wanted, I don't have trouble most of the time drinking my water, but I just want to remind people that with the weather that most of us are experiencing, please drink more than 60 ounces of water, please. A lot more.
Okay. So Mary's going to be checking y'all out on your first homework assignment to make sure you drank more than 60 ounces of water.
Question.
That's a
You need
minimum.
a lot more than 60 ounces of water, especially if you're going to be active and you're going in and outside, even inside. I know you medical people know what I'm talking about far better than I do, but it's still, the heat still affects you. And then you have the air conditioning, whatever. Anyway, it messes you up. You need your liquid.
Definitely. Somebody else was saying something.
Judy, what if you don't
Judy.
eat breakfast? How do I get protein with every meal if I don't eat breakfast?
Well, I think you'd have to eat more protein at your other meals. I mean, I think
Okay.
you'd up your protein, just you want to divide it over the eating window that you're eating in. That's a good question.
Hey, Lisa,
All right.
this is Jenny. And listen, this is not about BFit or diet or whatnot, but I want to go back to those appetite hormones, ghrelin and leptin. If you snore or have apnea, those 2 hormones are disrupted. That's why a lot of people gain weight when they have sleep apnea, because they eat when they're not hungry, and when they're not hungry, they eat. So snoring and apnea disrupts those 2 hormones.
That's good to know, Jenny. Thank you for that additional feedback. All right, guys. So if you're watching or listening to this video and somebody cared enough to share this with you, get back to them and find out more information about how to gain access to BFit at the very, very best price. And I'm going to stop the recording and then hold on just one moment. We'll shut it all down.